If you or a family member have been hurt because of the careless actions of another person, call Walker, Texas Lawyer. They'll work to get you the financial compensation and justice you deserve. They have 40 years of experience, and you don't pay unless you win. Call 713-881-9653 today for a consultation or go to walkertexaslawyer.com.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, best-selling author, and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, how are you?
The legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias.
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The legendary frontman of AC/DC, Brian Johnson, joins us right now. Brian, how you doing?
Good morning, Brad. What looking to talk, give me funny lad.
Grammy Award winner Maya joins us.
How are you?
And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat, Brad Gilmore.
We're so excited to talk to him today. He is the author of Sweetbitter, which will be available worldwide on August the 1st. The Texas native joins us right now, Mr. Reginald Gibbons. Reginald, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. Let's talk about the book, the brand new book, Sweetbitter. It has a Texas story involved in it, turn of the 20th century. Let people know exactly what the book is about.
The book is about a young man who is a migrant with his mother when he's still a boy from Mississippi to Texas by foot. His mother wants to walk all the way from Mississippi to what was then called the Nations, was now Oklahoma. She's Choctaw, and he's part Choctaw. His father was white. And she dies on the trip. She's ill when they start. And then the rest of the book is his growing up from the age of 11 until he's a young man and getting into various kinds of jams, because it's not easy being in Texas if you're not white at that time, and if your skin is not white. And if you're part Indian, that's a category in itself among various kinds of racial discrimination, of course. And we're talking about early in the 20th century too, before there was anything such as a civil rights movement. The crux of the struggle itself is that he falls in love with a young woman in a small Texas town. She falls in love with him, and this is going to put them in a lot of danger. Part of the novel is effectively a kind of an attempted escape from all that, but eventually they come to a town after a lot of wandering, where they feel they have a protector. But I won't give away any more of the plot than I need to.
Yeah, don't give away too many spoilers, obviously. But the book is fascinating, especially based here in the Lone Star State, turn of the 20th century, a lot of Native American influence. What was the moment? Like, what was the spirit of creativity? What was the intervention for you that had this idea pop in your head? Was there a particular story that you read? Was there because this is based on actual things that occurred around the time?
Yeah, I did a lot of historical research on everything from World War I to sawmills and lumbering. And I spent a lot of time even studying the flora and fauna of East Texas. And this was just background, however, because the real question was, how will two such people manage to have a safe life? Now, why did I want to go there? You know, I was born there in Houston, and I lived there until I was 18 and went away to college. And I saw a lot of things happen. And actually, when I was in college out of state, I came back for 2 summers to work summers. And because Lyndon Johnson had initiated the Office of Economic Opportunity and created a whole bunch of facilitating organizations in Houston and elsewhere, especially in Texas, of course. I did a lot of work with aspects of that OEO thing in Houston, and I saw a lot of painful situations, a lot of discrimination. I worked part-time as a recruiter trying to get mothers in a Hispanic neighborhood to register their kids free for preschool. That wasn't easy to convince them of. I was at the march again, the march for the Vietnam War, in which Marines from a nearby base came in sort of fatigue outfits and rather than uniforms, and beat up a group of anti-Vietnam War paraders with their kids who were walking in the park, in Herman Park. That was where it went through. I saw other stuff. I learned about the Texas State University quote-unquote riot in Houston. I did a lot of research going back to things that I later realized as an adult I had heard of or seen a little of. And when I got to be much older, I started writing this book a very long time ago. And by then I was not only much older and able to understand people better, but also I was capable of serious research. And I wanted everything in the book to feel real.
And not to interrupt, but when exactly did you start the process of writing this book? You said it was a long time ago. When around was that?
Yeah, it was when I began. It was still the 1990s.
Oh, wow.
Late 1980s and early 1990s. And it took me 7 years to write it. And it did well. It won the Texas Institute of Letters Best Novel Award the year it came out, the original year it came out, which was 1995. And then it was a Penguin paperback, and it was a University Press paperback, and now it's gotten a new edition. I'm really happy about that because most novels, they don't make it through very many editions. They don't stay in bookstores. I mean, people run out of stock and presses don't reprint them. But I think Sweetbitter had I think it invited readers to engage with things which nobody really wants to have to brood over in the modern world, especially racial discrimination. But at the same time, there's so much empathy one can gather. This is a writer's device I'm about to describe. If you take something that happens now and you put it in the past and you make those people seem really real, then you have readers who can feel something about it in a way that doesn't necessarily make them feel angry or upset about current situations, because these things just don't go away, and that's worldwide. That's human beings, So it really appealed to me to try to find a way to, in a way, honor the East Texas landscape and the people who have had to struggle to survive. Of course, there are a lot of other characters in the book too. There are well-off people. The young white woman who ends up running away with Reuben Sweetbitter is from a wealthy family. But of course, that ties her family into knots even more than if she had been, a cotton crop daughter,
Now, you mentioned a lot of this research that you put into it, and you realized later you'd had experienced some of this during your time here in Houston, at least in the first 18 years of your life, and then afterward when you were working with in university. My question, though, is how did Houston and Texas in particular shape you as an author?
Well, it did a lot of shaping, I think, because now we have to think about Houston as it was a very long time ago. When I left the city to go away to college, I think within the city limits, it was not even 1 million people.
Wow.
But of course, Houston had already lots of outlying suburbs or districts with lots of people. So the total population of the whole area was bigger. But My father was a salesman from his car. He sold small items to small independent grocery stores. These don't even exist anymore. The chains killed all that. But I used to get to ride with him at work when I was a kid, for example, and we'd go out around outside the city limits. We'd go to a little grocery store owned by a Chinese proprietor, one owned by a Japanese proprietor, one owned by a Black proprietor, and I would see all these different kinds of interactions, and I learned a lot about how people live. I was exposed to more than most kids were. I went to a very good high school in Spring Branch, graduated from there, Spring Branch Senior High School. I don't think it exists anymore in the same way, but that was a totally racially segregated district where that school district was. I had great teachers there, but I did begin at that point to think about how it worked that we all were living in this huge metropolis. It wasn't huge, but it was big, the metropolis, and people just don't get along. This is the way it is, and this really affected me a lot. It made me think a lot for years afterward about how can people live with each other more generously.
Well, hopefully we've taken steps towards that in society at large, and I think that we have. There's always still work to do. Now, to go to you back as an author, I have a process question. You mentioned a writing device there a moment ago. I'm always fascinated by authors, actors, creatives of all type to figure out what their process actually is. So when you had this idea for Sweetbitter or any of the writing works that you've had, what is your next step after that? Do you dive right into research? Do you try to outline the story? Kind of what is your process?
I'm not too good at outlining a story. I have to just depend on my intuition. I know where I want to start. Something comes to me and I think I would like to write about this. Now, how do I do? Where do I start? I pick a starting place. It may not turn out to be the right one, but I let my own intuitions sort of take me where they have their own impulses, And of course, I have a lot of visual and experiential memories of the South. My father actually was from Mississippi, and I went there with him a couple of times. And I have cousins there and other relatives, and the whole Southern experience and the history of Texas with all its flags and the legacies of the Civil War, all those things were always still present somewhere else in Houston. There are monuments to this and monuments to that. And I sort of absorbed a lot of that, I think. If there had been history classes in my high school, I probably would have really, really liked that. But that wasn't a topic that you had in Spring Branch at that time. So my intuition is what I have to depend on. And believe me, every writer gets stuck. You just don't know what to do. I'm trying to finish a novel now that I'm stuck in, and I'm really hoping that my intuition is going to come up with something. But right now I'm stumped. I've got the whole thing mapped out. I've written 300 pages of it, but I realize that there are things that are just not present that I've got to figure out how to make present, how people are with each other, and what the world around them, how the world around them affects them. This second novel is about a kid who gets arrested for something he didn't do. And I've spent a lot of time in courtrooms and things like that, just taking notes, seeing how things work. So I just follow where my impulses and ideas take me. And if I succeed in finishing something, that feels great. And if I don't, I've got it here in this room where I work, and it's still looking at me from a shelf saying, well, when are you coming back to finish this off, man?
Well, I'm just thrilled that Sweetbitter is out in a new edition for everybody to pick up on August 1st. And I'm thrilled to have this conversation with you, Reginald. It's been a pleasure. And I hope that we get to do it again when you finish that next novel.
I'd love to. And maybe sometime I'll get to Houston.
Hey, well, let's do it in person. I would love that.
That would be great.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Okay, you take care. Thank you.
Hurry up, tape running out.